Thank you for joining us, everybody. We're here for an Arrow sit-down interview with Dr. Bruce Skinner. Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
Yes, so today we're discussing the history and origin and, well, the state as is of living at Southeast. It's easy to, take it for granted in terms of what it is today, just because I think it's kind of a given, going on Facebook and seeing the posts and things like that. What is kind of the history of it? When did it come to be, and what was the intention behind that at the time?
So its intention is not what it's turned out to be. I'll say that from the start. It started about 8.5, going on 9 years ago. And it really started to help incoming students connect with roommates. So the goal originally when we started this, it was started as a residence life project, was to help incoming students connect with other people that maybe they'd be roommates with or floor mates with or suite mates with. And then after you made that connection, you would pretty much leave the group after a year. So its intention never was to become sort of an online social hub for the campus. And what happened is, after the first year, we started removing people because it's time for the next year's class coming in. And students reach out and say, no, that's just where I learn about stuff. Leave me in. So we left them in. And then when they moved off campus, we started removing them. And then they, no, leave us in, even though we're off campus. And so now we don't make any effort to remove you. Once you join, you're pretty much there.
And so what sort of things, how do you moderate? Are there things at times that, kind of require removal of content? Are there any things that you have to take care of?
So I'll say, fortunately, there's very little that our students, and it's not just students on the page. There's students, faculty, staff. Rarely do we actually have to remove things, but we do. And so there are a couple things that are sort of bright lines. If you attack another individual, whether it's a student or faculty member, that'll get you removed. Doesn't mean you can't say, I don't like taking Dr. Skinner's class, that I don't like his test. That's an opinion, not a problem. But as soon as you start saying something about, this person is, that you're attacking or harassing a person, that'll get you removed from the group. The page is not designed as a commercial page. So while students can look for suite or to sublease the property, they can sell their books. If you work for a private company and you come on the page and you start plastering it with, come buy a product from this company that I work with, we have very clear statements about commercial speech. And so in that case, we'll remove the post and then respond to the individual saying, this isn't a sales, venue. The other thing is, if there's just blatantly false information. So if I know that the university's open and you're posting on there that the university's closed because you want enough people to believe that, in that case, I'm gonna mute you and remove the post.
What do you think of the ways in which it is it a good access point for students and professors to converse at times, whether it be a problem they've got, or even other departments, with regards to food on campus and things like that, as far as connecting with different folks about whether it be statements or complaints or anything along those lines?
So like I said, while it never started out to be what it is now, I do believe it serves a valuable purpose because it gives people an outlet. And to me, social media is about expressing yourself or having an outlet. And I wonder where students would go if they didn't have this forum to share, whether it's a complaint about food, it's a complaint about a classroom, or it's a complaint about a policy. Students know that by posting here, even though they may not necessarily get the response they want, there are some people that are paying attention to it. And I think over 8.5 years now, we've demonstrated that students can post information or post questions or opinions and get some kind of response. For me, there are a lot of questions that get asked on there that if you just went to Google and typed it in, like what are the hours of a certain venue, you'd find that. So sometimes I wish people would use Google and not the Living at Southeast page to find out, what time the rec center is open or closed. But as a self-moderating group, I also know there's a whole bunch of students that when they see those questions, answer it for their peers. And that's great because in the end, the page is ultimately about, if you have a question, concern, complaint, can you share that with someone that cares about it? And can we try to get you some kind of answer to it?
Yes. And so, with that, you talk about where students would go with regards to different things. You see a lot of a real spectrum of what students are coming to Living at Southeast for, and, asking everything like the original intent of different things like housing, or asking, basically, finding friends and things like that, or even organizing clubs, organizations, things like that. What do you think about how the different organizations, kind of spawn out of that, or different ways in which things become organized through living at Southeast that might not otherwise have an audience or have context in order to form what people are trying to do?
I'll answer it this way and say, the Living at Southeast, I think, has become such a part of the communication culture at Southeast. And to demonstrate that, it's actually in our accreditation documents. When we were recently reaccredited by the Higher Learning Commission, well, some of their questions are, how do you engage your students? And one of our answers is, we use this very active page called Living at Southeast to both push information out and for students to share information with us. But to your point specifically, I've seen very specific examples of where clubs are formed because a student just says, I have an interest in this. Who else has an interest in this? Particularly, we'll see that sometimes over in our club sports area. Or someone just says, I haven't been able to connect with anyone on campus. Is there anyone else that shares these kinds of interests? And suddenly they're sending them their Snapchat handles and all those kinds of things, connecting with people. And people join people. They don't join organizations. The Living at Southeast gives you a chance to interact and join organizations through meeting other people. And to me, that's a win. I've actually joked before with some of my colleagues that eventually when I retire from Southeast, they'll put together some resolution thanking me for my work. And I'm sure one of them will be, whereas you created the Living at Southeast page, for better or for worse, and I think for better, that it has had an impact on our students. And for me, it's just another touch point of the university to connect with our students. And in some cases, that connection is very positive. In other cases, students call us out and say, this is wrong and somebody needs to do something about it. And there's nothing wrong with students calling us out when we're not meeting the expectations we have as a campus.
And that was something else I wanted to kind of ask and dig into, is just in terms of if you ever regretted, building or creating Living at Southeast, in terms of just to the degree of whether it's something that boils up, creates a lot of argument or contention or tension in general, that kind of creates difficulty among the students or things like that. Has there ever been moments like that in terms of just trying to manage what happens in the social sphere?
So there have been moments where I've thought, man, I wish this didn't exist. I'll just be honest. When I look at it holistically, no, I've never really been that, disappointed that it's turned into what it is. When there are things that develop that require a lot of attention, that doesn't bother me. What's difficult about the Living at Southeast page is, as soon as someone posts something and people either share that information or add to it, sometimes that's not the complete picture. And the Living at Southeast page is not always a great way to address significant issues. I mean, it's one thing to say, the Rowdy's closed early, what's going on, or where's the shuttle at? When we get into more complex issues, and we've had them with both the sexual assault information that blew up on Living at Southeast years ago, we had it as it relates to a Black Lives Matter protest. Living at Southeast is a great forum for people to share things, but it is a difficult forum for people that want to help share accurate information back, because by then you're just buried in the comments. And that gets frustrating, because I know that the students are sharing their view and sharing what they're seeing, and I want to share back accurate information, and sometimes that's difficult to do through the Living at Southeast page.
Mm-hmm. And there's a certain culture and atmosphere to it in which, there are, whimsical comments from different professors and things like that at different times. Or, when everything went virtual, it was living virtually at Southeast. Yeah. So there's a culture. What kind of things go into how you kind of manage it in terms of, creating a culture for an online group?
Yeah, the Living Virtual at Southeast, I thought would get 4 likes, and it might be the most liked post that I've had on there in a long, long time. People go to social media content where they know they're going to get more accurate information, but also timely information. And so for me, it's about sharing things like I did today about our men's basketball team going back to the OVC tournament for the first time, I believe, since 2017, so that students know, okay, I can know something that's going on campus if I go to this page. Maybe I'm going to find out that someone was happy with their Chartwell's meal. Maybe someone's going to ask a question that they could Google. But I'm also going to hear about what happened with our sports team. A few weeks ago, right when February 1st started, Black History Month, I started sharing things from our equity issues page about the previous history of the campus. And so for me, it's keeping content on there. And it's not just me. There's a couple other administrators that do this work as well, so that students go back there and it's not complaining at Southeast. It really is about the living at Southeast or the community of Southeast.
But that does create a seamless segue into something I was kind of wanting to ask as well about just the spin-offs, I guess, if you will, of the group. I know there are groups like Complaining at Southeast that exist, and that was not created by any of you all, correct?
No, and I'm actually not a member of Complaining at Southeast.
Now, does that what do you think of kind of how that has sparked other groups in terms of just the fact that kind of regardless of what other groups may be centralized around maybe one specific point or something maybe students are trying to make, or one way that they're trying to voice their concerns, or one way that they're trying to voice anything really, is that do you think that's conducive to things spanning out greater? Because I know that with living in Southeast, there's complaints as well. And so what do you think of the way that those have spun off in relationship to living in Southeast?
I would say that if we were on a different college campus, we wouldn't be using the term living at Southeast. We'd be using the term, and there's some examples, broken at blank university. I mean, there's Twitter handles where people post about broken things on their campus or Facebook groups. And so it's not a unique phenomenon here. And I don't want to say that the Living at Southeast page is unique to Southeast, although when I talk to colleagues at other schools and I talk about this self-moderating, some university administrators are in it, but in some ways it's a little bit of a free-for-all in terms of how they're like, wow, we wouldn't do that as a campus. There's just no way we wouldn't have control over it. What happens if a student posts a picture about something like they did the Towers West Stairs that the campus is following up on, and a parent sees that or a prospective student sees that? That is the campus. So while I may not be pleased with what's being shared or what's being said, or in some cases I'm embarrassed when I see something like, I know our campus could do better, that is who we are. And so I think that's part of also the reason for the success. It's not set up for the glossy 8x10 flyer you give to a prospective student. It is all of us and everything we do great and everything that we're not doing great. For me, when I look at the page and the things we're not doing great is, can we take that information and do a little bit better so that we try to resolve the issue? So for spinoffs, they're entertaining. Students were doing them prior to social media. They were just websites. And prior to that, we just did it by talking to each other rather than putting it on social media. So if anything, spinoffs just prove the dominant role that the Living at Southeast plays for some people, because other people are trying to either mock it or sort of ride its coattails.
Yeah. And lastly, I wanted to ask about kind of what your expectations are about the future of Living at Southeast. I know you mentioned beforehand a little bit about with the kind of shifting tides of social media and where the young folks are at, I guess, in terms of that. Those were my words, it's not yours. But with how trends change, Facebook, whether or not it's predominant or anything like that, Instagram as another viable alternative. What do you think about the future of living at Southeast?
So, approximately 2 years ago, I started to expect the Living at Southeast participation to decline. I didn't think we'd see as many members join because I thought it would sort of move to Instagram. And Instagram's a very different platform. You can't really share information in the same way. And you certainly can't engage with someone in nearly the same ways. But I still thought, okay, incoming students may not even have Facebook, so they're going to be on Instagram, and 2-3 years from now, this page will pretty much just be the seniors that are left. And yet every day, 5, 6, 8, 10 people want to join the group. Incoming students who invite other students. And so I'm no longer trying to predict the demise of the group. I think until there is a better mechanism for students to share a concern and for it to get institutional response in a timely manner, there'll always be a place on social media for Living at Southeast or some version of what it becomes next.
Any last comments or anything from you that I didn't get to ask you about?
The only thing I would say real briefly is there are a number, you asked earlier about moderators and administration. There are a couple other people, Lakeisha, Alicia, Katie, Trey, Kendra, that also manage it. So I may have started the Living at Southeast, but there's actually a group of about 7 or 8 of us that multiple times a day check in on it. And we would not be as successful. The page would not be successful without that team effort, without a doubt.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all for watching. I'm Clayton Hester.